Hello everyone, how precious to get to talk to you this merry holiday season. Today I want to talk dirty to you. I want to give you some sexy numbers because it's the return of Olba, or Oblaze I think he goes by, which kind of sounds like a stoner name, but don't worry, no need to call the cops, he's cool, he's with me. We've talked about his numbers before. In case you're unaware, what Olba does is he goes on the Tekken leaderboards and he collects all this information that he turns into easy to understand, easy to enjoy, easy to complain about statistics and diagrams on things like rank distribution and character popularity. And it's really great. It's really useful information if you want to see it. I'm obviously not going to show everything here. He's published it, I think, earlier today on the Tekken Reddit, and it's being upvoted, of course, so it's going to be near the top. Thank you so very much for doing this again, and please support Olba in any way you can. I've just picked a couple of things that I thought were interesting, and I want to start with character popularity, which is what we have on the screen already here on the left. So we've got post Season 3 placement, and this is Season 3 before the release of Season 4, and then we've got Season 4 placement, and then post Season 4 placement, which is the wording that Olba uses for where we are at right now. So post season doesn't mean, you know, after the season, it means late in that season. And then we have columns in between indicating the changes that the character has seen in between these different periods. And who knows, we might not have many more major updates to this game, so this might be the state of the game going forward. So if we start with the top 3, I've only lifted out the top 20, by the way. The bottom looks the same as ever, you know, it's Elisa, it's Panda, it's Gonryu. But at the top we have the same top 3 that we've had for a long time. I don't think any surprise there. Paul, Kazia, and Brian. In my own experience, Paul is not that common in the slightly higher ranks. If you play sort of Emperor and above, you don't see much Paul, unless you get, like, you know, people who really specialize in it. But I think he's consistently popular throughout the ranks and kind of clustered towards the lower ranks. That's just my impression. I don't have anything to back that up though. And then Kazia and Brian, of course, very popular even at higher ranks, and characters that you're going to see multiples of if you play a longer session of online Tekken usually. And then at number 4, we have Armor King, the first DLC character. And I kind of love the fact that Armor King is the most popular DLC character because he represents something pretty unique in this game, in my opinion. He's a DLC character who isn't unreasonably overpowered or anything, but he's still loved and very popular. And people tend to pick strong characters, you know, in this game. So I always thought he was kind of a cool character. Then again, he's had a massive power boost recently because they buffed him very hard, right? And that has caused him to rise from 6 to 4, probably. He seems to kind of oscillate around there. It's obviously not going to hurt his popularity when he gets a massive power boost. So I thought Armor King needed some quality of life changes. His while standing 1 launcher was wonky, and they fixed that for him, which is great. But they coupled these necessary changes with a massive power boost. I think the new forward neutral 2 counter hit low is an insanely good move. He has improved punishment, improved counter hits, and all the rest of it. So overall, a very strong character. And if you do love Armor King, are you sort of sad that he's not as much of a cool hipster character anymore now that he's a little bit better? I don't think he's as good necessarily as the characters that are around him on this list, though. So cool, great stuff with Armor King. And a character that I've always thought that I'm going to end up picking up at some point because I like him. He's kind of similar to Bob in a couple of ways, which is, you know, one of my main characters. And then at number 5, we've got Falkenblom, and then at 6, Leroy. Now, these characters have consistently been very popular since they came out, and they've also been heavily overrepresented at high ranks, and we're going to look a little bit at that later. But it's pretty much, I think, undeniable. It's just fact at this point that these are the characters that you buy, and then they boost you really high into the ranks, probably higher than you could go with other more reasonably designed characters. And I don't think that's an opinion at this point. It's just kind of indicated whenever we get any actual information about this sort of thing. It's interesting for me because the sort of four horsemen of the apocalypse, as I think of them, Kunimitsu, Lydia, Fakum Lam, and Leroy, I honestly think Fakum Lam is one of the easier to beat out of those characters now. I think Lydia and Kunimitsu are very, very crazy as well. And we're seeing some really interesting indications of that on the tournament scene, which is kind of starting to, come back alive again. And I think Nee said that he thinks Lydia is the number one strongest tournament character in the game. I think he put her at number one on his list. And then we've seen an overrepresentation of very successful Kunimitsu just in the last few weeks as well. So it's kind of interesting that they are not in the top 20 along with, Fakum Lam and Leroy is what I'm trying to say. And who knows, maybe it's because people just don't like the designs as much. Maybe it's because they're girls. One of them is a small child who looks kind of creepy in my opinion. Who knows, maybe that's why. And then if you look at the list overall, really it doesn't change all that much since, late Season 3. And one way you can look at it if you want to find out what's really been changing is if you look at the change column, or the Season 4 placement column, I should say, the one in the middle. If you find any number there that is above 20 or more, then that's obviously a character that wasn't in the top 20 before, but is now. And as far as I can tell, there's only one example of that, a character who has really grown in popularity so much that they've entered the top 20 now, and that's Feng, which is interesting. He was 26th in Season 4, and he's gone all the way down to 19th now, so I think people are really waking up to the power of this character. And an interesting thing about Feng is that he's changed a little bit recently, new spin moves, some new combo paths, but I don't think the character really has spiked in power level or anything like that, excuse me. I think it's more people are sort of realizing more and more how strong this character is. I think he's been a little bit of a sleeper for a while, and I think he's very strong. The only reason I don't consider playing him is I still think his combos are just very awkward to perform, at least the good ones, and I don't think they feel good. I don't think it's fun to combo with Feng. But I think he's a really cool character. I think he looks awesome, and he has a lot of, cool and interesting moves. Wish he didn't have that many snake edges, though, because, I'm not a fan of those. But apart from that, he's kind of a Tekken classic at this point, and I like Feng, so that's cool. He's seen a real rise, but apart from that, it's kind of the same old story, what we've been used to in the past. And I think 3 DLC characters in the top 6 is something that Namco is very happy about. You have to realize that these characters are, this popular despite the fact that, unlike all the other characters, you actually have to go in and click stuff and pay money to unlock them and be able to use them in the game, and they still place this high, right? So I think overall sales figures for DLC characters are very, very high for this game, and I think people who play the game consistently tend to buy a lot of extra content for it. Next, I want to have a look at rank distribution. And I think, again, it's kind of predictable what is happening with this. You can see that we have a lot more TGOs. It's sort of doubled since the beginning of Season 4. And, that can be because of meta changes, but it's also obviously because of the fact that people are playing constantly, getting better, and managing to get into higher ranks than they were before. I think overall, people, it's kind of like the stock market. It slowly increases over time, right? Which is interesting. I think really the rank that stands out to me here really is Fujin, because you can tell that we have a lot more Fujins now than we had in mid-Season 4 or the start of Season 4, and we have a lot of people actually managing to get into the blue rank. So when I say blue, I mean, Fujin and up. It's also really interesting to look at Raijin for me. I always say, when people ask me, when do you think that the advanced play really starts? When do you think people start to become seriously good? And that obviously is going to depend on what you're comparing to and what your standards are. But I always say Raijin, because I think when I'm ranking up a character and I'm trying to go past, the blue ranks and higher, I always feel like I notice a spike right there in sort of overall ability. But it's also the case that Raijin is officially the first rank in the game that you have to earn without pity points. So what I mean by that is, up until Fujin, you get more points for winning than you lose for losing, just by a little bit, but you can get promotions by maintaining a 50-50 win-lose ratio up until that point. But once you get to Raijin, you lose exactly, or to Fujin, so you're trying to promote to Raijin, you need to earn, you lose as many points for losing as you win for winning, which means that you have to have a win ratio better than 50% to promote further. And that might sound like a really minor thing because it's like 50 points difference at that point, but I think we underestimate sometimes how important something like that can be. And we've seen in the past, especially with the implementation of the Season 2 changes, that this system, this ranking system, is extremely sensitive to small structural changes. And if you just mess with it a little bit, it actually starts changing in all these interesting ways. So really cool. Still a very small amount of the Tekken playing population getting to that TGO. And you can see, Tekken God, 0.8% about, Tekken God 0.8, Tekken God Prime 0.8, and then you go to Omega and it drops all the way down to 0.26. But it's just that crazy amount of consistent winning you have to do to push the bar once you get to that rank. So still, I think a very impressive rank to get to with any character and for any player. And let's look a little bit at individual ranks. So just lifted out two that I want to talk about that I think were interesting. The first one is TGP. And if we have a look at this, I hope it's not too small to actually read what is happening here. But I mentioned earlier that Fakum Lam and Leroy are consistently very overrepresented at higher ranks. And you can tell right here that they are, by a ridiculous amount ahead of all the other characters. There are these like two giant towers that just stand far above anything else. And then I think the next character is going to be Kazia, and then we've got Brian. So, the two predictable ones after that. So, it's not that surprising. I think it's really interesting to see just how few people manage to take Yoshimitsu this far. There are actually fewer people at TGP with Yoshimitsu than there are Panda players. And you have to keep in mind that Panda is only one half of a character because Kuma and Panda is the same character. So, even half of the Bear players is a larger population at this rank than all of the Yoshimitsu players. It's interesting. That character is in a really weird place and has been for a while. Very loved, of course, by a lot of people. But, this strange sort of a clown. And I think overall, way on the weak side. And I think he would benefit from less gimmicks and less unblockables and just a little bit more solid actual Tekken tools. Maybe in the next game. But then I want to show something really interesting that happens when we jump up to actual TGO. Look at Fakum Lam and Leroy. They've fallen off in a big way since the last rank where they were so overrepresented. And I think this, what it indicates to me, and this is conjecture, is that a TGP is how far Leroy and Fakum Lam will carry you. But the TGO, players just get so insanely good that not even with characters that strong can they just do it for you. And the most popular or most represented character at TGO is actually Devil Jin, who I think is honestly also one of the most powerful characters in the game by a margin. In the base roster, I think he's close to the top. The Hell Sweep is just so crazy, but so is everything else, mix-ups and Laser Scraper and Steel Pedals and all the rest of it. Just a small, ridiculously solid package for almost everything. And that flying combo ender that just gives you all that damage and breaks the floor and does so much for you. Fantastic character overall. And the least represented character at the very max rank at TGO is actually Panda. Again, you should probably look at that together with Kuma. But yeah, pretty interesting how those DLC characters seem to fall off when you get that high, and it seems to be kind of the Mishima show at the very, very top. And I think that might have something to do with sort of Mishima culture, you know, this thing of people really getting into those characters deep and studying and working very hard at getting technically good. You know, that's sort of the Mishima way. And if you're that serious and focused about getting good at stuff like, you know, moving and placing these electrics, then that's probably a skill set that is going to be conducive to you doing well in the ranked mode of the game. So just some cool information to look at. Thank you again to Oba. We're going to talk again around New Year's, but what's happening with me right now is I'm preparing to actually leave this country. I only have, less than 2 weeks left here. So it's going to be a while before I have everything set up back in Europe. But once I do, we're going to make lots of stuff. My plan is actually to spend a lot more time making content and even live streaming going forward. I know I've said that a couple of times in the past, but this time it's actually true. But in case we don't have a chance to speak before the new year, I hope you had a great year. I know for a lot of people, me included, that's not necessarily the case. Like everybody's telling you all the time, they are difficult times, but hopefully better stuff in the future. And I think in the next year, we're gonna learn finally what is the next step in the next chapter in the Tekken story for this franchise. What is the next game going to be, and so on. If you have a New Year's resolution, let me know. I'm gonna learn a new character. I always do at the start of a new year. In January, I learn and try and get really good with a new character. I haven't decided yet. I think it might be Armor King, but it might be, we'll see. We'll see what tickles my fancy. I think if Namco are going to have a New Year's resolution, be less of a collection of greedy cunts that intentionally ruin very precious and beautiful things for the sake of sales figures and marketing, and hopefully that that sort of spirit infuses whatever project they are working on behind the scenes for us next. But thank you so very much for watching this short video. Thank you so very much to Oba for creating these numbers. I hope you're having a great new year and a great holiday season, and I'll see you again very soon.